Aloha and welcome to Intuitive Talk Story. You're listening to K&Care LP 96.1 FM Kohala. This is Michál Anna, your host, and I am excited to be here with you today and to have as a special guest my mama, iridologist and herbalist, Miss Karen Alvarado. Welcome back to the show.
Aloha. It's always fun to be on the show.
It's always fun to have you. You're a wealth of information. So I love having you here. And so let's just, before we get into anything fun, let's take a moment with all of you out there to just drop into our center and get present for this juicy information we're going to talk about today. So just take a moment to close your eyes, drop into center. Just releasing your day, and also, of course, you're driving, and just grounding into the core of the earth and letting anything you don't need from your day go down into the earth, releasing it from your body. You might use your breath. Take a nice exhaling breath. Intending to be connected head and heart-mind coherence. Allowing source, God of your heart, to flow through the top of your head, connecting to that greater wisdom and your own inner wisdom. Just cutting away any debris, any energetic gunk from the day, any contracts, oaths, promises you've made anywhere across the timelines, to just be released now to their rightful place. Using your breath, just intend to blow it away. Come into your own divine Sha bubble, like we've talked about in the past. Sha, infinite light, the absolute. And we give thanks to be together here and now. Mahalo nui loa ke Akua. And so it is. So, excited to connect today and talk with you about sugar. Getting out of the sugar game.
Yay. Hey, remember a long time ago, maybe you don't remember, too young, there was a book when I first started doing this called The Sugar Blues.
I don't remember that
It was
book.
a really, really popular book that came out really like so many years ago, 25 years ago or so, talking about the demise of sugar. So, but sugar, by the way, is a sweet carbohydrate, and it's actually used for energy, natural sugars.
Right. Well, there's a difference. So we're going to talk about sugar today, and we're going to talk about all the things it does and how it affects the body. And there are complex carbohydrates and there's simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are the sugars that are good for us, right? Like those fruits, things that come in grains. I mean, of course, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing, no matter how you slice it. But those are good sugars, right? So can you explain the difference between those good sugars and kind of what we want to call the bad sugars or processed sugars? And give us a lowdown on what that does and what it's doing to the body.
You're exactly right. Too much of a good thing or bad thing is too much. And so I always say you cannot eat too many vegetables, but you can eat too many fruits. Because again, while we need the natural sugars, the fructose, we don't need the sucrose, which is the processed sugars. Processed sugars mean things like soda, candy, sweets, donuts, even sweetened yogurts, pastas, even breads with different names on them. So look for, look for things like corn syrup, dextrose, maple syrup. Not all maple syrups are equal other than a natural maple syrup. So you got to look for things like that when you're really thinking about sugars. Sweetened cereals, what about those? Most people have their kids start on the day with sweetened cereals.
Right. So starting our day with sugar, we'll get into that. That's a whole nother aspect. But just you brought up a lot of stuff right there. Good sugars versus bad sugars. How do they break down on the body though? Like a complex carbohydrate, like a fruit, as opposed to, let's say, a glucose or a corn syrup?
Well, let's say a good sugar and or found in fruits and other aspects of our like our complex carbohydrates is used for energy, and we do need good energy, good sugars in our body. So I don't like people to go on a with, oh, I'm so afraid of sugar now because I have an illness or a disease. You still want to keep that in balance. But well, let's say the bad sugars or the processed sugars that we find in so many foods, that's what converts into inflammation. And inflammation affects predominantly what we see here in Hawaii, diabetes.
Right. So those fruits and all those kind of things are things we want to keep in there. Of course, again, not overdoing anything. You can overdo it. But so I like to think about label when you brought up labels. When you go to the store and you're looking at labels, uh, if something's got more than 5 ingredients, it's probably not something you want to eat. Secondly, what are the first couple ingredients? And often, if you go look at an energy drink or a soda or any of those kind of things, you're going to find that high fructose corn syrup is one of the first ingredients on that label, which is telling you it's mainly a processed syrup or sugar. And you brought up maple syrup, which I love maple syrup, and I use it as a replacement for sugar. But I make sure to get grade A real maple syrup. If you're just getting something that has, again,
Added sugars.
right, added sugars or fructose, often fructose, corn syrup or something of the like is in those things, then you're just back to the same bag. And why do we want to look at this stuff? Why do I? Well, you're like, but I love sugar. Why do we want to? What does sugar do to us? It's so. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we can talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts. But why do we want to be aware of sugar? What's the reason? Why are we like, hey, get out of the sugar game? What's that even about? What can you tell us about how it affects our beingness and our body, and get into some of these things like candida, which if you're not familiar with that, we're going to learn about it right now.
Well, I don't want to get into candida yet because I really want to just admit that, sugar is the number one problem in America. It causes obesity. And guess what? Obesity is the number one problem in America. And anybody who's obese, I know, is not healthy. I don't care how happy they might be, they're not healthy. And so sugar is a part of that obesity. It also causes cardiovascular disease as well as, I already said, diabetes. So, candida, what does that mean? Well, too much sugar will bring on candida. And candidiasis is what most people don't have a lot of knowledge about it, but it is a kind of a microorganism that grows in the gut as a result of too many sugars, and it converts into what's called yeast. And other people know it like mold or fungus, Those are other kinds of things. It's not the mold you find in your house, but it's another word for mold or fungus. A lot of people say, oh, I have fungus on my toes or fungus on my fingernails or, those kinds of things. So that's a symptom of candida, as an example.
Okay, so all of it. So right now, if you've got that going on, you already know you're oversugared, and is that often accompanied with diabetes? So we have a lot of diabetes here in Hawaii. So let's kind of connect the dots there.
Okay, so the first thing is candida is always a precursor to diabetes because of the sugars that do not processed sugars that do not metabolize properly in the body, stay in the body and convert into a quote unquote fungus again. And it lives in the body causing infections or dis-ease. And one of the diseases it can cause is diabetes, not to mention the other couple that I have mentioned already. Should we talk a little bit about symptoms?
Sure.
Okay. So some of the symptoms, the people don't say, I don't have any symptoms, but there's so many symptoms. There's vaginal yeast infections, there's oral thrush, there's skin, like a lot of people who have rashes, particularly in our warm, moist clients here. That's another symptom. And it could be under, like in your groin or under your breasts or small raised bumps. It also can be in your esophagus and causing difficulty or pain when swallowing. So there's so many things, as well as your nails. I already said that. Penis, red, itchy, sometimes even blistery or scaly rash on the penis. But the most common, not to mention rashes on the skin, is the intestinal. That's where I see most people have it. Intestinal bloating, gas, constipation, or even diarrhea. So a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, I do have all those symptoms. And another one, we got this brain-gut connection. When the brain is, you're having like fogginess, right? It's usually because you've got something going on in the gut. And so much of the time it's candida, which is causing a lot of brain fogginess. And people come in, I have clients that come all the time in, and they're like, I can't remember everything you're telling me. I'm like, I know, don't worry. It's because you have candida, and candida will cause brain fogginess. So don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay. We'll clear it up.
We'll clear it up if you stay on your program. So it's one thing to come in and get a session and learn about all the things, but if you don't actually do the work and make the choices and change your diet, change your this, change your that, well, then all this stuff goes out the window. So just a quick note there, we got to actually do the work in order to achieve the health that we want to experience. So diabetes is a big one here. So you're saying that most everyone who's got diabetes has probably experienced some of these symptoms in some department or other prior to getting to the state of diabetes. And what then makes it diabetes?
Well, diabetes is now a situation where you're what we call insulin resistant, meaning now because of the sugars, which cause so much inflammation, those sugars, natural sugars, are no longer being able to be processed through the pancreas to move into the cells, because we all need, again, sugar on a natural basis. So at the cellular level, the cell becomes hardened. And now we're insulin resistant. And then our pancreas is putting out too much insulin, causing then the ill effect of diabetes. And then that's when people go on diabetes medicine. And hopefully if they don't do anything different and they just keep doing what they're doing and they just stay on diabetes meds, eventually they'll be on insulin, because we're trying to push insulin into the cell. And so we'll go from, well, the meds aren't working, to now we're just going to pump you with, having you be insulin with insulin shots. And that will be more dramatic, as far as now you're going to have real diabetic symptoms. You could have things that it's commonly called neuropathy, where your feet hurt so badly from, let's say you walk on rocks or something that's not soft or smooth like grass, your feet could have an extreme sensitivity and symptoms. So now it's starting to affect your nervous system. Mm-hmm. So it's a very crippling disease. It can cause blindness. It can cause it literally can cripple you. So it's so fun. I have a client that he literally took it upon himself to remove all sugars, completely change his diet, because he was going into diabetes. They, they give you a marker when you get a blood test. They can tell you you're pre-diabetic, etc. He turned everything around just by cleaning up his diet and really staying steady. I mean, he does no more sodas, no more beers, no nothing. And he's just doing real whole foods, like your proteins. He likes fish a lot, or taro, or what was the other root plant that... Ulu.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Cassava. Well, ulu is a tree.
Yeah.
Ulu is a tree, but cassava is a root crop.
Yeah. So some of those things. And he's just doing such a remarkable job on it by himself. And he's been doing it all by himself for 6 months. I mean, like, congratulations. But he came to me because he still has some underlying symptoms that we want to address. And we want to use herbal remedies to completely rid his body of the candida. He's done the best job of starving it. Now we want to, complete the process.
Eradicate it.
Yep.
And how can those sugars also affect the mood and the well-being, like emotionally and psychologically?
Well, like I said, people will have
Besides the brain fog, you
brain
talked about
fog.
that.
I had another client that came in and said, I just get so angry all the time. Because again, all of, again, candida really starts living in the intestinal system and initially. And then, so the intestine is the home for your mood receptors and your immune system. So now candida can cause other things related to both. You talked about moods. Well, the mood receptors can include anything from depressed to angry to brain fog. What other moods? I'm trying to think of moods that are not happy.
Well, sadness. I mean, I
Sadness.
seem to do the depression and the mood swinging. I mean, even in myself, I mean, I was a time when I had to clear candida out of my own body from eating too much sugars when I was young. And I remember you helped me do that in my late 20s, 30s, where I was, doing candida, releasing candida, doing herbs to release it from my body, and was very much off of sugars. But I remember feeling like the mood swings, like, that you talked about, like, emotions swing back and forth, or you might be melodramatic or think things are a bigger deal than they are because you've got this sugars running through your body.
Right. Well, that is another great symptom for people to really be sensitive to is their moods, even though I've had clients say, well, I don't really have any symptoms. Well, you were talking to me a little earlier about, how you lose your temper so fast and you can't remember things. That's a symptom, that you're too young to start thinking, to have that be the case at this point in time of your life. So it's really kind of like exploring when a client comes in to see me, let alone I'm trying to get people to explore what are some of the symptoms that potentially I might have. And it could be minor or it could be intense.
Well, and you bring up a really interesting point, that I feel like in general, we've been given this bar by society, and most people, or a lot of people, I should say, many people are under the impression that not feeling good is normal.
Yeah.
And that, well, you're supposed to feel this way, I'm 40, or I'm supposed to feel this way, I'm 50, or, well, I'm just getting old. I can't believe how many times I hear people say that. Well, I'm just old. And it's not true. I mean, it's not the truth at all. In fact, that's a big fat lie that we've been sold, that we are supposed to feel bad, or that you can't do anything about it, or it just comes with the territory, that kind of thing. And that kind of thinking, I think, prevents a lot of people from seeing these symptoms you're talking about. They just think, well, that's normal. Everybody feels like that. No, they don't. And you don't have to. We're actually, in our, as I like to talk about, in the spiritual realm, emotional realm, where our state of being is actually to be in perfect awe, to be God's source, divine beings who are resonating our infinite capacity and living that way. And so food is the one, a really big way that, that can affect how we do everything, mind, body, and spirit. It's affecting everything. What we're putting in is completely affecting our ability to be tapped in to spirit as well.
That's important because I often tell people sometimes it's very challenging to have a relationship with God, your higher self, spirit, whatever you want to call it, if you can't even have clear thinking and you're moody and you feel depressed. And, a lot of people think, that depression always is a medicine. Oh, let's take some antidepressants, right? And so what I like to do is look further so that you can really achieve your highest potential mentally, emotionally, and spiritually and physically. And no matter at what age you are, all these things that may be occurring for you in this moment can be changed. I'm my best client with regards to candida. I was a candida baby. So people don't even realize that many children were brought in by their mama that had candida, yeast infections, those kinds of issues. And when they were coming down the
Birth
canal, here we go, they're swallowing yeast, and then they become a candida baby. And that was my situation. By the time I was in my late 20s, I was having another symptom I didn't talk about is sinus infections, and that was really starting to affect me deeply. And unfortunately, guess what? I didn't know anything then, so I took antibiotics for it, and I was taking like 4 rounds of it, and that was killing off my good bacteria that was making my candida worse. And so I kept getting worse year after year, and I was still eating the kinds of foods that promote candida. Like, well, for us, it was back then, it was like yellow cheeses and tortillas. And I'd start my day a lot of times with a cup of coffee and a sweet. And then I'd eat out during my lunch hours, and gosh knows everybody has all these processed sugar foods, at fast food places. So I was making myself worse. And finally, I got help. And I was in my mid 30s by then, and I started my journey, and it just turned everything around for me. And I had started gaining weight during that time too. So I lost weight, my skin looked better. I just within 6 months was like a different person. And people were asking me, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then I started, preaching the gospel about
Right.
candida.
Right. Yeah, and that's amazing. Of course, I can relate to being my own best client. All the things that we talk about here are things that we've engaged in or have learned about through experiencing it. And also, I've been your client and for forever. And, I really do stick to the program, like I do what she tells me to do. And, then I'm able to move through and release things and see a real change in my own body and a real change in your mind and ability, like to do this deeper work of releasing your emotions, of coming into more real balance with the self without having a really solid diet and being able to, you know, without that solid diet of healthy foods going into the body, it's really difficult to navigate your emotional body if your physical body is all over the map. So I concur and encourage us all to think about what we're eating, what we're doing. And you said starting your day with sweets. I've taught kids a lot of my life, and a lot of times, especially like you see kids in the morning I've seen kids come to school or at summer camp or this or that with a Coca-Cola and a muffin, or something like that. And then you wonder why they can't learn. Like they're not able to pay attention in class. They're now being labeled ADHD or some other label that is not true. It's actually just diet. They're being fed too much sugar. These kids have the ability to focus. They just are eating foods that don't allow the brain to actually settle and become ready to learn. So it's hard for all of us to learn, focus, and be super present when we're filling ourselves with sugar. And then, like you said, what does the regular world do? They just give drugs we'll just give you some drugs so you're not depressed. We'll just give you some drugs so your sinuses don't hurt. We'll just give him some drugs because he can't focus. And that's just not the answer. Our answer is to go back to foods, to real food, to growing food, to our farmers, and to supporting real systems. And this is kind of across the board, I think, at this point in time in humanity. We're at a real time of recognizing the simplicity of nature. And these are things that our indigenous cultures and our people, where we come from, and the Hawaiian people, if we could get back pre-rice and pork, go back to the original diets, they weren't filled with the stuff that we have now. They were filled with really whole foods based in, living off the Akua and, fish and poi and things that really support the brain and health. Over time, we've just brought in so much of these foreign and processed things, which are destroying ours as a society.
That reminds me, I've heard, statistically proven that anybody from a foreign country that comes to America and has the SAD diet, meaning standard American diet here in America, will get our American diseases. We have the worst health in the world.
Yep.
We're down at the bottom. Our health care is so horrific. And we are, I don't know, number 90 of out of the countries in terms of illness and health. And, people are so much healthier in other countries. We're talking about the blue zones, and they're living to be 100. Not on purpose. They just do because eating whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was not living, I was visiting in Italy for 5 weeks, and I ate their pastas and their breads and their cheese and even drank their wine. And I didn't gain any weight. I didn't have any issues. I had no repercussions from that whatsoever because it's entirely different. It's an entirely different food.
Well, and it's also farmed differently. And even, if you haven't seen just even the boxes, all these box foods that you're talking about, which just stay off the box aisles anyway. But when you do look at those in Europe versus America, we have like 20 ingredients more in our packaged foods than Europeans do. And a lot of a lot of the ingredients are really like things that you make that they use for like, I can't remember, like glues. There's glue in a lot of these things, like really horrific stuff. I just saw an ad around the Nutri-Grain bars, that thing, the Nutri-Grain, what you think is strawberry in there. It's not strawberry. It's like toxic fillers. There's no strawberry in there. They're dyeing it red and there's like glues and sulfate. I can't remember like all these terms, but there was a ton of chemical components that make up that filling in the center of those cereal bars. Those aren't real fruit. Those are disgusting. And that's what a lot of kids are eating, that stuff. It's so toxic and it's destroying the body. And and they make a lot of these things to be shelf stable so that they can stay on the shelf for, 9 months to 2 years or whatever and just sit there. I mean, if you broke down, I can't remember all the components of a Twinkie, but my God, it's just horrific. Oreo cookies, also glue. That's all glue and fillers. So all these things that you think are, oh, let's get a treat. Oh, we can have a cookie. Those aren't real cookies. That's all actually poison. It's true poison.
Yeah, and that is so sad to hear that. And you see, it's kind of funny you bring up two different sweets that I grew up on. Those Hostess cupcakes and Twinkies.
Right.
Twinkies was my favorite, as well as Oreos and dipping it in milk. Oh my God, so good. But I'm telling you, not just are the ingredients horrific, they are addictive. And that's why we keep eating them. Not to mention anything in a bag, potato chips, all those other things. Anything in a box, anything in a bag, they have addictive ingredients in there. And that's why people keep eating it. It's so hard to get rid of. And what I tell people, again, be gentle with yourself when we start to change your diet slowly. Mm-hmm. And working with me, we're getting rid of the candida. So, because candida makes you crave. I mean, it literally is a living microorganism that continues to grow in your gut. And if you do leave it unattended, it will go into the bloodstream and things become even more horrific for one. As what I say is that we're killing it, you're starving it. So the combination of doing two at the same time makes it so much easier because people crave this stuff.
Yeah, you're not in charge of your own self. We did a show on parasites recently, and if you haven't heard that, check it out. You can find episodes of Intuitive Talk Story on the radio station's Spotify, Intuitive Talk Story. You can also find it on my YouTube channel at MichalAnnalove at Michál Love. There are replays of all these shows. And pretty much everything's feeding the bugs. And the bugs then take over your brain.
Yep.
And they're ruling what you think is you, but they're not you. And I brought up on the Parasite show, and I'll speak it here again, is this gets into the energetics as well. So energetically, you might have cravings or want to act a certain way or have behaviors that you might start to identify with. I knew someone who identified as an angry man, but that isn't actually who they are. They just identified with it due to how they ate and how they ingrained behaviors into their being. But there's bugs behind that stuff. There's actual microorganisms that's who's the angry part, or the not you as a divine being our divine nature is to be in wholeness. And of course, the food plays a component. And if we've been in trauma or disarray long enough, then it's like the little child in us gets locked up somewhere. And these bugs or different things we've given power to begin ruling the vessel, ruling this temple that we live in. So it's actually the candida talking that's navigating the game, not the being, because the power has been given away to these other aspects. So this is also, again, it's all a metaphor. It's a great way to understand entities or these other things I speak about giving our power away, taking back our power. It moves through the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, all of the bodies. We have to regain our sovereignty by controlling what we put in all forms. What am I feeding my brain? What am I feeding my body? And then how am I navigating this earth game? So we're going to take a quick station break and think about a lot of that stuff. And we'll come back with more intuitive talk story in just a few moments. All right, we are back. You are listening to KNKR LP 96.1 FM Kohala. This is Michál Anna, your host, and you're listening to Intuitive Talk Story. Today, I've got here with me my very wise mama, iridologist and nutritionist, Karen Alvarado, and I'm grateful to have her here on the show. And we're talking about getting out of the sugar game. What does sugar do to us? What are some aspects of that? And we were just discussing candida and our moods and how it affects us, and power giveaways to a degree, and how it might be that sugar. So
Right. To be descriptive, when people come in and we start working it, I say, just think of it. When you're craving at night, those little bugs are saying, feed me, feed me, feed me. Try to give them a visual. I'm like, oh, my God. So when you go to that fridge and you want to eat that ice cream, remember, you're feeding them.
yeah, they're like, gang, gang, gang. I want it. I want it. I want it. It's
Give
not
it to me.
you
Give
that
it to
wants
me.
it.
So, okay, this is the hard part. We want to starve it by eating really good foods. And what would that mean? Non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, kale, spinach, cauliflower, zucchini, cucumbers. The
Dark
plethora of
leafy
vegetables,
greens.
the plethora of vegetables that our beautiful Kohala farmers grow for us, and anybody that has a garden hopefully is doing that. You can do lean protein. Protein comes in a lot of different forms, everything from plant-based proteins to animal-based proteins. So I like people to start their day with protein because it actually helps to balance and manage blood sugars. And if you're getting enough protein throughout the day, that actually can help stabilize those blood sugars and reduce your cravings. So a lot of times people are eating foods that are like carbohydrate.
Carbohydrates.
Thank you. And sugar driven that they can't seem to not, continue to feed those. So get that lean protein in there. Also healthy oils like coconut oil or flax oil, walnuts, avocado oil. Avocados are great. That would be a great treat to have instead. Low sugar fruits. We live in Hawaii, and everybody loves their mangoes and papayas and all those, really, really sweet fruits and bananas. But you can eat those, but be careful how much you eat, and do what I call low sugar fruits like berries, apples, oranges. And then your probiotic rich foods, which is very, very common here, is to eat fermented foods like the sauerkraut, which is great and really healthy for the gut. And unsweetened yogurts, that's also very healthy for the gut. And lots of spices regarding garlic, ginger, curry powder, and basil. Those are great tools for helping to start supporting your diet. That's the beginning of it. Then we start looking at other things like what vitamins are you deficient in? So vitamin D3 has been shown as a strong antifungal property. Vitamin C is an immune booster to help fight the infection of candida. B complex, the same thing in conjunction with other treatments, If you're deficient in iron and folate, these can lead to more susceptibility to infection. So I usually like to make sure people are on a either a power shake in the morning, superfoods that we provide people with to get all those nutrients in, or to be on a multi-mineral vitamin, one or the other, but it's got to be plant-based. Then we start going into antifungals, and I don't want people to go out there and buy all these and try it themselves, because what's good for me might not be good for you, etc. What's good for Michál might not be good for you. But these are some ideas that are popular, and that's caprylic acid. That is a fatty acid derived from coconut oil. It's considered one of the most effective remedies. Podiarco, berberine is another herb. Probiotics, all different types, whatever. I usually test to see what's best for everybody. I already said garlic, and that's good for everybody unless you're opposed to garlic. Oregano oil. Those are some of the basics in terms of the kind of herbs that I use to help deal with it. Echinacea is another good one. Those are all and I have an herbal remedy where all of them are put together that can help. You don't have to go out and buy all these individually. But I have remedies, an herbal package, you might say, that can help facilitate that.
Yeah, it's a definitely takes some work, right? We have to be committed to getting off the sugar, like we were saying earlier. Those bugs are talking, so we're gonna want to switch over to things that they don't like. They don't like dark leafy greens. They want the mango, or they want the processed sugars. So changing up the diet and staying committed to that, and then you brought up some things that we could do right now, like. If you're listening to this, you're like, well, gosh, I want to get on it right this second. I know I've been eating too much sugar. So what would you tell someone who wanted to start today as far as changing their diet in ways that they could serve themselves?
Yeah, this is a really hard one. White rice is got to come off the plate. When I tell everybody anything white is not right. And so white products, no wheat, no processed sugars. That entails a lot of what people eat. I just had a client the other day that said, I like to eat them, 80% plant-based foods and 20% the rest. And that person said, oh, I pretty much do the opposite. And that's the problem. You're eating things that are contributing to that on a daily basis. So get those refined carbs out of your diet, the white flour, the pasta, the white rice, and try and go with the whole grain pastas, such as there's now so many different gluten-free pastas like lentil pasta, brown rice pasta, quinoa pasta is one of my favorites. And then there's all of these sprouted grain breads. You don't have to give up bread. It's just a different choice.
And also talk about sourdough, because I do sourdough, and I understand that to be different because of the processes.
Yeah, when somebody has a pretty strong case of sourdough, I don't even let them do that.
I mean, case of candida, you mean?
I mean, pretty case of sourdough, a pretty good big case of candida that I don't even have them do sourdough.
So in the beginning, you're really getting off of everything, but let's say you've eradicated these things from your body. It's not like you can never have bread again in these forms. You just want to be more simplistic with what you put in.
Right. And pick another alternative to sugary drinks. That's another one.
Oh, that's a huge one.
That's a big one.
And honestly, we love chlorophyll with spearmint oil. We have chlorophyll that has that, and you makes your water super yummy. Just water is really the best way to go. The water, and I love to do at night. I love to do like ginger turmeric tea with some black pepper in it, and just you can make teas. We've got hibiscus, we've got mamaki, we've got mint. You can make a big thing of tea and put it in your refrigerator and then drink that when you want like a drink. You're like, ooh, I want something. Because often we just like, ooh, I want something tasty, or I want a drink. We can substitute with making just herbal teas that you have as iced tea that are just mamaki is awesome. I love mamaki, and I love mint and hibiscus.
Those are great choices. Now, if you want to sweeten that, go with like coconut sugar, or another one people don't know much about is xylitol. It actually helps to balance blood sugars, and it's great for diabetes. And it has no aftertaste. And now the other one that does have an aftertaste I don't like so much is stevia. But for
Yeah, I
me,
don't like that.
xylitol actually comes in a bag like sugar, and you can cook with it, and you can put it in your drinks, and that is not harmful, and it gives you that sweetened flavor.
I that's not my favorite, honestly. If I do use sweeteners, I do prefer to use a little bit of honey or maple syrup, like in baked goods. I've been utilizing maple. And what is your thoughts on maple syrup?
Those both of those, honey and maple syrup, are fine as long as you're not now consuming, a lot of either. That's really important because that the honey hits your teeth, your mouth, and so it can cause cavities as well as maple syrup. So too much again of a good thing is too much. Where the ones that I just mentioned will not, if you really have an issue or attachment to sugar and you need something sweet.
You can replace it. So replace. I'm all about replacing when you're trying to change up a habit. Replace it with something else. So utilize a different way of engaging with your food. What other ideas you got there?
Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but high mold nuts are an issue. Peanuts, cashews, pistachios. So that's another issue, as well as your certain kinds of dairy, milk. Sorry. Anybody, please do your research. Don't take it from me. There's so much data now online about the demise of milk. Soft cheeses, creams. So many people love those flavored creams on their coffees. So I use a plant-based product. I use coconut milk. You can use almond milk or coconut milk or what's some other ones?
Oat. What do you think about oat milk?
Not so much that one.
I
Rice milk. Then it kind of gets moldy. That I have a lot of issues about the mold of making my rice milk. So I kind of stick with the coconut and the almond milk.
Well, I've been really loving. I got an almond cow, which is a machine that you can buy that is, honestly, you just can soak your nuts a little bit, and just throw them in there, and you don't even have to soak them, honestly, but it does make them more digestible if you soak them a little bit and put it in there. And my friend, she does walnut milk. She loves walnut milk. And then I was doing Brazil nut and hazelnut milk a lot, and I was liking that. These are nuts that you have to buy at the store, right? You can also do mac nut milk. We live here. Mac nut milk is another way you can get mac nuts fresh and crush them and make milk. So the machine is basically crushing them and cheeseclothing it for you. So if you're not familiar, and I've also been making coconut milk here and there when I get cocos, and I really love doing that. That's the best. And what I was doing was, get some cocos, and anyone can do this. It's just a little bit more labor intensive, is to open the cocoa, and then you have the water that you get to have and put it in jars and drink that as some of your special drink. And then, take all the shredded coconut, take the coconut and dig it out and blend it with, just some water. And then you cheesecloth that into a bowl or a mixture, and you squeeze out what you now have is coconut milk. And then what I was doing, which I loved, I need to do this again, is I have those silicone ice cube trays. And so I fill them up with the coconut milk, and then just every time I want tea or a drink or something, I just pop out a frozen coconut milk cube and put it in my tea or in my thing, whatever it is I'm wanting. And then you have fresh coconut milk all the time. And there's no fillers in that. It's just straight up coconut milk with maybe a little bit of salt, a tiny bit of, real salt, not or like even pakai from that you go harvest from the coast. You can even harvest some salt, and which is fabulous. So that's my favorite way to have some milk, honestly.
That sounds yummy. That's really awesome. And by the way, whether you're getting nuts or buying these in the store, make sure everything's organic.
Yeah, and this is a huge one because everything's getting sprayed. And just to kind of talk about that for a minute, when like I do tofu a lot these days, which honestly is probably not my very very favorite, but you have to make sure that it's organic because soybeans are sprayed heavily in this country. Soybeans, corn, wheat are all super sprayed by toxins. And the glyphosate issue is a real deal problem, which is breaking down the gut, back to the gut health, breaking down the gut and creating holes in the microbiome. So we do have a product that addresses that and pulls the glyphosate out of the body and, creates a prebiotic that starts to repair the microbiome, which I've utilized and I think is absolutely critical. So organic is the way to go. Otherwise, you're eating pesticides. And now we're just doing the chemical thing and the poison thing all over again. It's unfortunate that we live in a time where this is all the case. I mean, like my grandma didn't have to deal with the same stuff. She wasn't in this time. They ate real food. People had real food. It wasn't all like this. The farming industry wasn't like this. The amount of things we're dealing with now is crazy, honestly.
And unfortunately, it's costing us, the consumer, more money to shop local and to not shop local, shop organic. Because even coffee, I tell people, a lot of people love their coffee. I don't mind that they drink coffee. A, it's not too much in consumption. And B, if it's organic, because coffee plants are really heavily sprayed, very heavily sprayed. It's one of the plants that's probably at the top of the list.
Yeah, so these are all real major concerns. And just to add in here, as we're getting towards the end of the hour here, this is a little off subject, but it does come back into these bulk farming, bulk practices, and where we're putting our attention now as people. I just read about it today, so I want to just tell you out there, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I've mentioned it before, but the data centers that are going in, we're really, instead of putting our energy into growing food, the masses are putting their energy more and more into the computers, the black box and AI. So just a note, I know we live out here in Kohala, and that is not really Kohala way. I know most of us are living more close to the earth and are striving to do so and maintain the practices of the people who have dwelled here for many generations and, fishing, hunting, living with the earth and using things from the land. But if you aren't already growing food or supporting local farmers, now is the time. And if you have the ability to, if you're somebody who is involved or has the capacity to stand up to the government or write letters or speak out on any level, now is also the time that we need to stop these data centers from going in around the country. I just saw an article today talking about $600 billion is slated by big tech to go into the creation of data centers over this next year up until 2030, and then it got into the trillions. And that's an unprecedented amount of money. And the biggest problem there is these data centers, I think they were saying something like utilize somewhere between 5 and 6 million gallons of water per week, which is really, when you think about it, we've all watched these movies since we were young about the machines and not letting the machines take over our world. And here we are making data centers and creating chemicals in our food and poisoning ourselves on big scales and letting machines take over. So if you think about the big picture, we are talking about taking charge of our humanity and being in charge of our health, in charge of our livelihoods, in charge of our lands, and being in harmony with each other and with the earth itself. And so making choices to eat well is far bigger than just your own health. It's the health of the planet. It's the health of what we give our dollars, our money to, what we're supporting, and how we're choosing to live. Are we choosing the fast, like, oh, I just got to grab something and eat and get on the computer and do the thing? Or are we choosing to have slower processes, to eat well, to be in more connection to our food and to one another? And we have to do that at this point. We really don't have a choice if we want to see humanity thrive.
Yeah, because now they're talking about one of our most important resources is water.
And they also announced recently that we're already in a quote unquote global crisis for water.
Right.
And if you weren't aware, long ago, they talked about water being the commodity. So it is a time to wake up and realize that what we do matters, and how what we put in our mouth matters, and how we're choosing to spend our time and what we give energy to matters, and that each of us is powerful and has the ability to affect change. It's easy to get complacent or feel like, what can I do? But we can each do something towards creating a new reality, and creating a world that is safe and clean, and where people are eating and communing and in the real way, in authentic life and authentic foods. So, yeah, do you have any comments?
The last most important thing is let food be your medicine, and let your medicine be food. And then we will create vibrant lifestyles until we move to the other side, you might say. I mean, I don't want to live if I'm not healthy and vibrant and can take advantage of life. I don't want to sit in my chair and watch TV all day. I want to get out there and enjoy life. And that's what it's all about. It's the quality of life you want to live, folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we get to decide together what we want to put our time to, and how we want to manage our energy, mind, body, and spirit, and make good choices to create health and wellness. Get out of the sugar game and own your own mind, own your own vibrancy. Together we do rise. And I'm excited about that Mama Jamma. That's happening next week at St. Augustine's. We just heard an ad for it. We will be there, Mama and I, and giving thanks and sharing superfoods and sharing health and wellness. So please come and say hi and visit with us. And I hope everybody has a beautiful, beautiful day. We're going to welcome Gabby into the studio and have her come back from her glorious trip. And she's back live. And if you'd like to get a hold of Karen Alvarado and you'd like to, how can they reach you?
The best way is my email probably, and it's Karen, Karen, the number 4, health @gmail. Karen4health@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you again for coming in and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. I look forward to having you back on the show. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for being here. And everybody have a really healthful, beautiful day, and be aware of what you're putting in your body. And together we will rise into greatness.
Best of health to everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.
I recall all my power and all my energy back to me with divine care. Whoever, whatever is living off my light energy, run that back, get your own. I'm emotionally gifted, so I must guard that gift with wisdom and firmness. My openness is emotionally generous. I must be watchful. I'm seeing who are and aren't skilled to receive. I receive what others' blind spots are, teaching me about budgeting my energy and setting them boundaries. I have the right to tell people what they don't want to hear in the name of setting them boundaries. I also won't exhaust myself on people who ain't listening. I'm done with people pleasing and the attachment to make everyone happy with me. I won't share like how I used to share. I people wiser. I know now people pleasing isn't love, but it is fear. I am magnificent at releasing expired emotional ties to how I structure my life with people, knowledge, money, friends, nutrition, health of my body, love, and time. I'm free from over-explaining and justifying my choices. My cutoffs aren't personal, they're spiritual. Anyways, I call back all energy that belongs to me. I am not the caretaker of those who want to stay asleep. I release the programming of being overly responsible for the happiness of others. The divinity in me, you know what's up. Tell me who I should share my intimate energy with. I focus my energy on who sees me and skillfully respects me.